Hey guys, Brian from Boas here. There's a huge amount of incorrect information out there about the size of boas, especially true red-tailed boas. And many true red-tail keepers are worried that their boas aren't growing fast enough. Today I want to try to correct that by showing you a number of different true red-tailed boas from my own collection, including animals of all ages and size ranges, so that hopefully you can have a better appreciation of how big your boa will get and how fast it should be growing. If you're new to the channel, this is the place for information about all aspects of keeping and breeding boa constrictors in captivity. So if you want to learn all about these amazing animals, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming boa videos. One of the most common questions I get from boa keepers that have their first true red tail is that they're worried about its growth rate. They think it's not growing fast enough, and they want to know what a typical growth rate is. And unfortunately, there's this misconception that true red-tail boas are giants that routinely reach 12 or 13 feet in length. The truth is, although there are 12 and 13 foot true red-tails, they're about as common as a 7.5 foot human. So pretty much a 1 in a million. You don't see these very often. Personally, I have never seen a true red-tail in my collection over about 9 feet. It's possible that if you feed a boa, if you power feed it, and if you had a boa of the exact right genetics, it might reach these sizes, but the vast majority of true red tails reach an adult size of between 5 and 9 feet in length. So I recently did a video where I showed you guys the relative sizes of my holdback Peru and Suriname true red tails that are now approaching 1 year of age. And I got a lot of questions about, well, what about older boas? And so today I'll show you boas ranging from 1 year up to around 10 years of age, just so you can get an idea about the size potential and growth rates of these wonderful animals. I spent a lot of time measuring and weighing boas in preparation for this video, and as you probably know, it's quite challenging to get an accurate length of a boa. They don't exactly hold still for the measuring tape. So these are as close as I can get to accurate, but these are accurate measurements. I've noticed there's an extreme tendency for people to exaggerate the sizes of their boas and snakes in general. And this is especially problematic on shows on like the Discovery Channel and the National Geographic Channel, where they routinely are claiming that like a 6-foot python is like 12 feet. But for the sake of this video, I did my damnedest to accurately measure these snakes. These are not exaggerated sizes. So I'm going to start off with showing you the boas I showed in that comparison video of the holdbacks from 2020. These are animals that were born in September. They're now 7 months old. I have a Suriname true red tail and a Pucallpa Peru true red tail. And you can see how much thicker the Pucallpa Peru is than the Suriname. And so the relative weights, this Peruvian weighs about 3 times what this Suriname weighs. This girl is 240 grams, this girl is 85 grams. And this girl's about 2 feet long, this one's about 2.5 feet long. So quite a bit of size difference. What I've noticed is that the Peruvians in general, they start out larger and they grow faster. So this one will probably take at least another year to reach the size of this one. And that's normal. You know, every animal's different. They grow at different rates. They're both healthy. So, you know, if your animal is growing slowly, particularly if it's a Suriname, don't be worried. As long as it's getting slow, steady growth, that's fine. I use a slow grow feeding regimen. I feed animals about every 2 weeks for their first 2 to 3 years of life. And both of these animals are on that regimen. You don't want to feed too fast. You don't want to power feed them or anything like that, because then they're going to get overweight, they're going to be really unhealthy, and it's going to greatly shorten their lifespan. You know, so with a slow growth feeding regimen, it will typically take about 5 to 6 years in some cases for a BCC, especially a female, to reach breeding size. And then I should also note that within Surinames, different lines grow at different rates. And this particular line of Suriname just tends to grow a little slowly. You know, I have animals from this line that are now 4 to 6 years old, which I'll show you later on in the video. And they've grown at a slower rate, but I'm not concerned that there's any, you know, health problems or anything like that. So those were 2020 babies. I don't have any 2019 baby red tails to show you. I do have a 2018. This is a 2018 Suriname that was born here. And her statistics are she's 560 grams and about 3.5 feet. So appreciably bigger, but 2 years of growth, you can see that didn't add all that much size to her. Red tails for the first few years, they'll typically put on about 6 to 8 inches a year, and that's normal. You can see she's looking a little bit more muscular. As they age, they get more defined musculature. They should have this really square look to them, and they're kind of compressed laterally. You can see that her height from her belly to her, top of her back is quite a bit higher than her thickness. So they're kind of compressed laterally. If your boa is round, or if it's not much taller than it is wide, then it's likely obese. In addition, if your boa doesn't show this nice defined muscle, it's likely obese. So you want to make sure that you don't overfeed your true red tails for the first 2 to 3 years. I would say once every 2 weeks. And this animal is still on a once every 2 weeks feeding regimen, currently feeding on small rats. On to the year 2017, and here we have a approximately 3.5-year-old Suriname boa. She's a little feisty today. Hopefully she won't draw blood. But you can see she's 4 feet long and about 1 kilo. So quite a bit larger than the 2018 animal we just looked at. Definitely beefier, a little more muscular. The growth rate seems to accelerate in many true red tails when they're around 3 to 4 years old. And so this female is eating medium rats at this point. She's looking a little more like the adult body shape for a true red tail. And she'll continue to grow and probably be ready to breed in about, I would say, 2 to 3 more years. I wanted to show you another 3.5-year-old red tail born back in 2017. And this is actually a Venezuelan true red tail. And as you probably know, the Venezuelan true red tails tend to be a little smaller, with the adults in roughly the 5 to 7 foot range. So this particular animal right now is about 4 feet long, similar to the Suriname I just showed you, but she only weighs 880 grams. So she's not quite as beefy, a little bit more slender. And I expect she's probably going to grow maybe another 2 feet until she reaches her full size. And then I would also expect she might be ready to breed in about 2 years or so. But if you want a true red tail that doesn't get quite as big, these Venezuelans are great. I also really like handling them because they're not as squeezy as the Peru and Suriname. A little more mellow, a little more enjoyable to handle. And you can see the beautiful colors and pattern on this gorgeous animal. Next, I want to show you some 2016 born animals, and these guys are approaching maturity. This first one is the largest of the group from 2016. This is an Iquitos Peru male, and this guy is about 5 feet long and about 2.5 kilos. You can see he's quite a bruiser for his age, quite muscular. As I mentioned, the Peruvian boas tend to grow the fastest. They tend to start out the largest, and so this guy's been growing at quite a steady rate in the 3 years or so that I've had him. He's actually now eating large rats. And so this guy is probably ready to breed at 4.5 years old. Remember, the males don't have to be quite as old as the females. I imagine he'll probably put on, another 2 feet or so in the next few years. But gorgeous, impressive, very large, muscular animal from Iquitos, Peru. Our next contestant is another 2016 born true red tail. This is one from northern Brazil, and this one is quite a contrast to the Peruvian male we just saw. So this female is about 4.5 feet long, so a little bit shorter than the Peru, but she's only about 900 grams, so quite a bit more slender. And the northern Brazilian true red tails tend to be one of the smaller forms of true red tail, with adults typically in the 5 to 7 foot range. This female grew pretty slowly when I first got her. She's from Vin Russo, and for the first couple of years she was relatively slow growing. The growth rate seems to have picked up in the last 2 years or so. She's also mellowed out a lot because this female was really hissy and used to strike at me a lot when I first got her, but now that she's approaching adulthood, she's quite a bit calmer. And so I would say that maybe this girl will be ready to breed next year, or it might not be till the following year. But quite a contrast in size between the Peruvian and the northern Brazilian red tails of the same age. There's obviously going to be size variability among red tails of the same age from different localities, but even among boas from the same locality and even from the same litter, there's quite a bit of variability. So now I want to show you two holdback females from 2016. And so this is a female who really stood out from that litter. Just, gorgeous markings, beautiful colors, awesome long red tail. But she's been a little bit on the smaller side and has grown a little bit more slowly. Right now she's about 4 feet 2 inches and about 1,100 grams, so a little over a kilo. So she's eating medium or large rats. She's kind of, on the border between the two, so I kind of vary it a little bit. I'm not concerned about her size. Sometimes the females will take 7 years to reach breeding size. You definitely don't want to push it. But shows you the smaller side of my litter from 2016. And this is her full sibling from that same litter. This Suriname from 2016 is about 4.5 feet long and weighs 1,600 grams, so quite a bit bigger than her sister. You can see she's quite a bit beefier, more muscular, quite a bit thicker around. This particular animal could possibly be bred next year. Not sure if I'm going to do that. Might give her another year. We'll just have to see how my breedings go this year, and before I finalize my roster for the 2022 breeding. But it just shows you that animals even from the same litter that are genetically very similar can grow at quite a bit of a different rate, even given the same feeding schedule. And this particular female was a little bit bigger at birth, probably a few inches bigger. Sometimes they just start out bigger and they grow a little faster, not unlike humans. There's going to be variability in size even among full siblings. On to the year 2015, and this is a 5.5-year-old Peruvian male. So this guy is at this point fully mature, and actually I'm breeding him for the first time this year. I just took him out of his breeding enclosure. Fingers crossed, it looks pretty good so far that this guy will be a first-time daddy. But this guy is quite a bit bigger. So he's about 5 foot 4 inches and about 2.5 kilos. He's just very muscular. You can see how square his body is. You can see the definition of the muscle looking at the side of his body. And when he moves forward, you can just see the beauty of the rippling muscle. That's something you always want to look for in a healthy true red tail, is that they have this rippling muscle, and that they're not chunky or round or overweight or anything like that. But this guy will probably get a little bit bigger. I would say he'll probably top out about 7 feet or so, 7.5 feet. But perfectly healthy animal. Shows you the impressive musculature of the Peruvian true red tails, and it's not hard to see why these are considered by many to be the ultimate pet boa constrictor. Now I'm going to show you some Boas red tails from 2014. These guys are 6.5 years old, and this first one is a proven breeder. She had her first litter of 9 babies last year. You can see she's still pretty small. This is a Suriname female. She's about 4.5 feet long, and she weighs in at 1,600 grams. So I'm not breeding her this year, obviously. Next year I'll give her a go again. Maybe her litter will be a little bit bigger. Typically the first time litters are a little on the small side. But definitely not a huge animal. And I want to make the point is that not all of these animals are giants. Very rarely does an animal get to these 10 to 12 foot sizes. The vast majority of adult true red tails are somewhere in the 5 to 9 foot range. So if you've been thinking about a true red tail but worried that it's just going to get too big, think again, because these animals very rarely reach these giant sizes. Here's another 6.5-year-old female Suriname boa. So this one wasn't born here, but I acquired her as a neonate, and she's only about 4 feet long, even at 6.5 years old. But you can see she's quite beefy. She's quite a bit thicker and more muscular than the female I just showed you. She's also, you can see she's super squeezy. Not a very relaxed or chill boa. Even as far as true red tails, this one is just kind of, a little bit squeezy, and just doesn't really like to be handled. She's not really that aggressive. So this animal, for the first couple years, like, she was barely growing at all, and I actually bumped up her feeding a little bit to compensate and hopefully get her growing faster, although it really didn't work. And you can see she's maybe a little bit chunky now, just because she's been fed a little extra because she was growing so slowly. So you don't need to feed them extra. Sometimes they just grow slowly. This animal I may breed next year. She'll be 7 years old, 7.5 years old. But cool looking boa, nice color, nice pattern. Just definitely not the most mellow, handleable boa in my collection. One more 2014, 6.5-year-old boa. So this male is a proven breeder. He's actually breeding again right now. He's about 5 feet long and about 2,200 grams. From the same litter as the female I showed you a couple snakes ago. But just shows you the variability of the sizes of animals within the same litter. You can see he's quite muscular. Hopefully he'll produce some babies in a few months here. The female he's paired up with will produce some babies. This guy was, the holdback, the #1 quality holdback from my litter in 2014, due to his clean body and, the beautiful, perfectly peaked, symmetrical saddles. Just a gorgeous animal. Got one more boa to share with you. So this is a 9-year-old, 2012 born Guyana male redtail. And this guy's pretty much reached his full size. He'll continue to grow, of course, slowly for the rest of his life, but he's probably not going to get much bigger than this. And I can really feel that muscle squeezing my fingers there. This guy is about 6.5 feet long. A lot of people with a snake this big, they claim it's 9, 10, 11 feet. Such as on the Discovery Channel. But no exaggeration here, 6.5 feet long. He weighs 4 kilos, or about 10 pounds. This guy is a 2-time proven breeder. And in fact, he's in breeding right now with his girlfriend, who he had the first 2 litters with. So fingers crossed we'll have some more of these beautiful Eckert bloodline Guyana boas, later this year. So this guy is about fairly typical size for most of my adult true red tails. The other ones are all 6 or 7 feet long. They just really don't get all that big, and I know that there's some really big ones out there, but I think it's just a combination of the right genetics and power feeding and getting them really big. Maybe these guys will get bigger as they continue to grow, but this guy's certainly not going to be a 10 or 11 footer. The female Guyana that this guy's paired up with is one of my biggest boas. She's about 8 feet long, and she's noticeably more beefy than this guy. She's quite a handful to handle. I had her in a video where I talked about handling my most aggressive boas. Luckily, she didn't draw blood. She gave me a really good bite one time. But she's in breeding right now, and I don't want to disturb my breeding females at all, so I'm not going to bring her out for a video. But you saw her boyfriend right here. Nice adult true redtail boa, about 6.5 feet long. So I hope this video was helpful and gave you some idea about the growth rate of your true redtail and how big your redtail should be at given ages, as well as how big it's likely to get. As always, if you have any questions or comments, reach out to me via social media. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your boas.